Hello guys, welcome to this YouTube channel Tidying Technical. I'm your host for today, Abhishek Prajapati. I'll be walking through JavaScript, basics of JavaScript basically. I'm not saying that you guys will have a sound knowledge of JavaScript after watching this video, but I can guarantee you that if you are just starting out you guys will have a base to just get started, okay? So without further ado, let's get started with the session. So let me just open my VS Code. It's already up there. Yep. So we will be starting from very scratch. We'll be first see what is the syntax of JavaScript, what are the variables, data types, operators, and we will be moving further to the harder topics like if else, chaining, and ternary operators, as well as loops, conditions, etc. Then we will move to functions and the objects. I will be also looking in arrays, how to work with arrays and strings. We will be looking to the similarities that we have in strings and arrays. So that's all for the session. So let's start it one by one. Let me create just one file here. Let me name it index.js. Alright, just checking out. Okay, so at the very starting point, I want to say that if I ask you guys that what is the smallest JavaScript program, so what would you say? Just comment out it. Okay, comment down in the section. I'll be responding the right answer. Okay, so I hope you guys did comment it on the video. So you can see the very smallest program on your screen. Yep, it is a simple blank JavaScript file, nothing else. This file is a JavaScript program in itself. Though it has no line of code, still it is JavaScript program. Alright, so let's get started. So what is the syntax of JavaScript? Basically, if I am talking about syntax, there are few things I would like to introduce you. The first one is, what are the statements, right? So if I write here any line, like if I write where name is equals to tidying, so basically this is called a statement, right? Every line in a JavaScript program can be called a statement if it contains something. Like if I do this, so name2, and if it is technical, so basically there are two statements in this program. You can see there are 3 lines, but I'm saying that there are 2 statements because the second line is empty, so we would not count it like it is a statement. So there are only 2 statements in this program. So anything that contains something is called statement in JavaScript. Okay, and the terminator, if you guys have some background in programming, so you know there are terminators in other programming languages such as Java, C++. So there is also a terminator in JavaScript, which is right this semicolon. Semicolon is a terminator which indicates that this line is ending up here. So I'm just writing here comment. You can reference these files on the Git repo. I'll be uploading this on the repo, and we'll be leaving the we'll be leaving the repo link in the description. So semicolon is called terminator. Okay, so basically it terminates the line. It is an indicator that this line is ended here. Let me tell you that JavaScript doesn't require this. Okay, JavaScript, just a minute. JavaScript doesn't require us to have a terminator at the end of the line. It's very forgiving in that sense. So these are the statements. You guys learn about the terminator. So let me tell you the blocks. I mean the blocks of code. What are the scopes in JavaScript? So suppose if I'm writing a function here, don't worry guys if you don't get function, what is function right now, just see what I want to show you. Okay, so if I make a function get name, and if I can see this name and name. So basically here you can see I have put it two curly braces to define the scope of this function. So this is called a block. Okay, so if we want to group something, if we want to group some statements somewhere, so we will be using this type of curly braces, and we will be enclosing all of our statements into that pair of curly braces, and that will be called in a scope. Okay, so that is basically a scope. So don't worry, I'll be explaining what are functions and all. So these are the basic syntax, like what are the statements, what are terminators, and what are the scopes. Okay, so let me just clear it out. Oops, nope, let me create one more file over here. Variables.js. Okay, so what are the variables? So regardless of the programming languages, variables definitions are all the same in all programming languages. Variables are containers to store values. Okay, come on यार,
कमेंट करके लिख देना जल्दी से, एक सेकंड लगेगा लिखने में तुझे.
Okay, so what are variables, right? So if I say what are variables, so variables are the containers to store values, right? These values can be used in future of our program. Okay, so let me quickly declare variables. You guys seen earlier that I was declaring a variable. So what is seen here, I have three, not three exactly, we have 5 things here, right? The first one is var. So what is var? So var is the type of variable, right? It is a type of variable, not exactly type, but it's kind of access modifier, you can say. That var is something that is keyword used to define a variable, right? And this thing name is the identifier to define what values it holds, like, right, like where this value is getting stored. Technically this value is getting stored in a memory locations, right? So name is the identifier of that memory locations where this value is put it on. Okay, so name is the identifier. Okay, and this equal sign, what is this? So this equals, in general sense, it means the name will be equals to that string. Generally the sequence of characters are called string over here, right? So this value tiding is getting stored in name, and this equals means that name is equals to tiding. Whenever we will be referencing name, we will meant to say that tiding is getting tiding is getting putted over the place of name. Okay, so equals to is assignment operator. We will be diving deep into what are operators, how many types of operators are there. Okay, so let me just do something, console.log name. Now what I have written here, console.log is just a function which will be logging the name on the console. In our case the console is right up here. If I do node variables .js, see, you can see here tiding is getting logged into this console. So basically console.log is a utility functions provided built in with from JavaScript that we can use to log values. Let me tell you, it is very handy tool to debug our JS code. Okay, there are also console.error, and we can do the same thing here. It is all the same, just let me show you node variables.js. See, it is getting thrown that there is error because we just threw that error, right? Wait a moment. ये कट कर देना.
Don't worry.
Okay. uh, I have mistakenly spelled this variable as it should be name, right?
मुद्दा मुद्दे के बाद बता दे खाली कैसे वर्क करता है, समझे?
Fuck off.
What is variable?
All right, we can declare variables with var, with let, okay. There is also another type which is const. I am constant, and it can be something flourish. I don't know why I'm typing this, but just to understand, like, so let's talk about const. Const is meant to be constant, right? Makes sense? Constant that we cannot change in further code. Like if I do here, let me clear up here. If I do that I am constant should be equals to let's say some another value, we cannot do this. JavaScript won't allow, because I am constant is a variable that is declared with const keyword. Const keyword make it unassignable in future code, right? So if we are declared that I am constant should be the value of this dummish value, so we cannot reassign the variable to another value, okay? So this will basically throw an error. So if I just run this file, node variables.js, see, we are getting error that this assignment is not possible. There is a type error that assignment to constant variables cannot be possible, right? So what we can do, if we make this let, if we have defined it with let, we could do that, okay? So if I try to change the variable name to which is declared with the let keyword, I can easily do that. So see, if I do this and just logging out the value of name2, what I would get tiding instead of technical, because we have reassigned this variable, right? So if I just run node variables.js, see, we are getting tiding here because we just reassigned the variable, okay? So basically we can reassign. So what are the differences between all this? Okay, let me clear. The variable declared with var keyword are have, we can say these have no scope, okay, are, you can say, globally declared variables, right? But the let keyword are not are not globally scoped, okay? Now what does this mean? This means that if we would suppose if we had a functions in where we can define the same variable with the same name, right? As far as the naming conventions are, so you can define any name to any variable, right? There is only one condition, that the name should not start with a number. Like you cannot do this 8 names something. See, our code suggestion is itself giving us the error that you cannot start a variable names with a number, right? Instead you can use an underscore. Numbers can come in between of names, right, like this, but it should not start with names. You can read more about the naming conventions on Mozilla Developer Networks. Let me show you. Yeah, this is also a very great website that you can refer to, which is W3 Schools. Let me show you just MDN MDNJS. It should show me the page. Oops, there is something wrong. Seems like I'm not connected with the internet. Let me just check. Alright, leave it. So basically, let me just quickly point out what are the differences between var, let and const. So var variables are globally scoped, let and const are block scoped. Okay, so we cannot access a variable that is declared with let or const inside a block. We cannot access that variable outside of that block. Okay, so for example, if I put a function over here, if I put a function, let's say get name, suppose if I have declared here name2, so if I console dot log name2, what will happen? What do you think? What will be logged if I just call this function? What will be logged? Let's see. It's logging tiding because we have reassigned the name2 variable with the tiding value, right? But let me show you. If I do just like this, name2 is equals to Abhishek, what will be the output of this log statement? Let's see. Now it is Abhishek. So what happens here? JavaScript first finds this name2 variable inside its local scope, which is this part of the code, right? So the interpreter just finds the name2 variable declarations over here. So it just logged this value. If there was no value, it tries to goes up to the scope, I mean the scope that we have right here. So it finds the definitions right here and logs this value. But we can see that we are reassigning the value, so we will be getting again tiding. See, okay. So these are the variables declarations that are possible in JavaScript. So let me just quickly clear up it here and just let me create a file named operators. So basically, what are operators in JavaScript? Operators are something that are working between two values, you can say. Operators are the thing that works between two values, you can say. So let me show you. First, let me tell you there are many types of operators. A few of them is, let me show you, arithmetic operators. Okay, so these are the same that you have learned in your schools or maybe 12th or boards. The operators that we have in our maths, that are arithmetic operators, you can say. So first one is add, right? So how do you add something? Like if I do just let result is equals to, let me define it like this, let num1 is equals to 19 or 10, and let num2 is equals to 5. Let me just quotient, let quotient is equals to mistakenly I addition, let addition is equals to num1 plus num2. So let me quickly explain this line. So we are talking about add operations under the arithmetic operator sections. Okay, so basically what we are doing here, name1 is a variable, name2 is another variable, and we are just adding them. So here plus is an in arithmetic operator. Okay. Oh my Jesus. Operator. Okay. We are just using plus to join, to add two values, right? 10 and 5. So if I just log addition, you can see that we are getting the addition of, let me quickly run this program, node operators. See, we are getting 15 over here because the num1 holds the value 10 and num2 holds the value 5, and the sum of them is 15, and that is logged. So just like that, we have some other things as well. For example, we have subtraction, we have multiplications, asterisk acts as a multiplication operator, and we have division also, and one more thing, we have modulo operator. Let me do this. This is subtraction, multiplication, and we have division, and we have modulo. Okay, so what does it mean by modulo? Let me show you. Minus is also an operating arithmetic operator, and this one is also, here come this one, and the last but not the least, modulo operator. What it does, it returns the remainder. Okay, returns the remainder. Alright guys, so let me just quickly log. Also guys, you can log multiple values in same log statement, like this: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and modulo. Let me just run this program. See, we are getting all the values. Alright, so that was all for arithmetic operators, and let me just quickly show you the assignment operators. Okay, so the examples are assignment operators. The first one is, let me just remove this line over that does not make any sense. So the first one is this. So this is called an assignment operator. So if we put here, you can say here 10 is getting assigned to this variable, and these are two things, right? The first thing is num1, the second thing is 10, and the operator that is acting something between them is called assignment operator, right? This is an assignment operators. There are few other assignment operators as well in JavaScript. For example, let me show you. Let num1 is equals to, sorry, we have num1 already, so let num1 is equals to 10, suppose. So we can do just num3 plus is equals to 10. Now what does this mean? Let me just show you. Console log num3. Just let me quickly comment it out here. See, we are getting 10. So now what does this mean? It is exactly the same, that take the value of num3, add 10 into it, take the value of num3 and add 10 into it, and then reassign the calculated value in num3 itself, right? So earlier the value of num3 was 10, we assigned 10 more points into that, and again calculated value 20 got assigned to the same variable num3, hence we get here 20. Okay, makes sense? So let me show you more variables like that. num3 minus equals to 10 is same as num3 is equals to num3 minus 10. Okay, so as you can see, you can do this, and you can do this, I guess so, and this would become this would become yep. Alright, so these are the things. You can also do modulo over here and modulo over here. Alright, so you have seen the assignment operators, and the next one is logical operators, right? What are logical operators? Logical operators are very useful in any programming languages because they can decide the flow of your program, whether the flow should be braked or the flow should be continued. Shall I? Thank you. ये तो क्या बनवा रहा है बे?
कोई दिक्कत नहीं। अबे जल्दी जल्दी कर दे, हो गया।
क्या जल्दी जल्दी कर दे?
कहाँ पहुँच गया? ऑपरेटर पहुँच गया?
हाँ,
ठीक है, ऑपरेटर हो गया। कितना
अभी
कंप्लीट हो
हो
गया?
नहीं गया है।
तेरा अरे बचा है।
काहे का है रे? अभी फंक्शंस बताने हैं।
सोना भी तो है।
Okay, so I was saying that logical operators are very useful in programming because they decide the flow of the program, guys. So there are a few logical operators. The first one is OR operators. Okay, logical OR. So if I just console.log, let me just show you the way to show the logical OR operator. I will be explaining more in the if else part of this video. So if I just console log something that num1 is greater than num2, so this greater than is a logical operator. Okay, this is a logical operator because it logically checks the value of num1 and num2, that if the num1's value is actually greater than num2, it will be logging true. Okay, so you can say that logical operators always evaluates to either true or false. Okay, logical operators always evaluates to either true or false. Let me show you what is getting logged of this, but before that let's take a look at num1 is 10 and num2 is 5. So logically 10 is greater than 5. Actually 10 is greater than 5, right? So it should log true. Let me show you. See, we are getting true. So what if the conditions got changed like this? So now this time it should log false because that is not actually greater than num2. Okay, so we are getting false here. So you can say two type of logical operators you have seen, the greater than and the less than. Okay, so the greater than and the less than. All right, there are also the operator to check multiple conditions. For example, you can just do console.log. In first batch you can check num1 is greater than num2, right? And in the second batch you can check that num1 is less than num2. Okay, so we can put another logical operator over here between two conditions, between two conditions, or you can say two expressions. We can put another logical operator over here. There are two types of operator that works between two conditions. The first one is this is called logical OR. Okay, this is called logical OR operator. Okay, so it will log true if either of the conditions gets evaluated into true. For example, num1 is greater than num2. This condition will evaluates to true, but this one evaluates to false. Regardless of this condition's result, it will gonna log the true value over here, because we have put it the OR operator between them. Okay, so let me just show you. See, the third one log statement is logging true over here, because this one is getting true, okay, but this one is getting false. But we have the logical OR operator. OR works as either of one should be true, either of one should be true. And what if we want to evaluate that both should be true, like the conditions, if both should be true, then only it should log true. In that case, we can put logical AND operator, right? Let me just clear out this comment over here, that is very confusing. Okay, so basically what this does is it tells if this condition and this conditions both are getting evaluated to true, then only this should log true, right? Now what does that mean? Let me just comment out these three over here. Okay, so if I run this program, see, we are getting false. Why this is false? Because this will only evaluates to true if both conditions will be true, this one and this one. If both are true, then only this will be true. But here we can see num1 is greater than num2, which is true, because num1 10 and num2 is 5. Good. So first conditions is getting evaluated to true, but the second one is getting evaluated to false. So first value is false, first value is true, and the second value is false. And that's why we are getting false, because the logical AND operator requires the both conditions to be true in all circumstances. Alright, so these were about the there are two more. Let me show you quickly. There are two more things. The one is greater than or equals to, okay, this condition. So num1 should be greater than, or num1 should be equals to num2. Makes sense? I don't think there is a need to show you the result. Also, you will have the file at the end of the session, so you can check it out at your own. So similarly, this one wait a minute, this one evaluates that less than or equals to. Okay, so let me just quickly clear out the comments that are not relative. Okay, alright, so we have seen logical operators, we have seen arithmetic operator, assignment operators. There are a few operators also, like bitwise operators and ternary operator, which that will be seeing in the next part of the session. So let me just quickly explain you what are if else statements. Oops. Okay, let me create a file named conditions.js. I know I'm missing very important parts of the JavaScript, but I'm just trying to deliver the most out of the JavaScript. Okay, so conditions, let me just clear. Conditions are very important because they decide the flow of the program. Okay, so there are ways to write conditions, and the ways using if and else. Okay, using if and else, you can write conditions like this. Let num1 is equals to 10 again. Let me show you. You can define multiple variables in the same line. For example, num1, num2, num3, just like this. And you can again say num1 is 10, num2 is 5, and num3 is equals to let's say 1. Also, you could do that right here. Num1 is 10, num2 is 5, and num3 is 1, right? So here you can see we have initialized all the variables at the same line. That's valid in JavaScript. So you can decide the flow of your program using if accepts conditions in the parenthesis right over here. You can see in this parenthesis we could write any conditions from here. Okay, operators from here. These all conditions are valid inside this if parenthesis. Okay, so we could write num1 is greater than num2. So if this conditions is getting evaluated to true, run whatever comes here. Okay, if this condition is getting true, run the associated block of code. I have previously explained what are the scopes, right? So this scope is called if scope, if block you can say, and every if block can have or cannot have, it is your choice. You can have associated else. Wait a minute, we can have an associated else block as well. Here the code will run that are not meant to be run at the success of the conditions. Okay, basically if the condition is getting true, okay, so the code inside the if block will be run, or else the block over here will be run. Okay, so let me just quickly add a console statement over here. Console.log, yes, it is greater, or here console.log, nope, it is not greater. Okay, so if I run this program, if I just run node conditions.j shit node conditions.js, see we are getting yes, it is greater, because num1 is actually greater than num2, right? So I hope this makes sense. All right, chaining, right? You can chain these conditions as at any level you think that is better. Like you can do num1 is greater than num2. If that is the case, console.log yes, or you can say else. If again we can decide the block of another else if, right? You can just say num1 is still greater than num3, and you may or may not have the final else block. This will be run if none of the conditions are getting evaluated to true, right? If these conditions fail, it will check the second condition, and if that conditions fails, it will automatically run to the else block, right? So just let me show you console.log. Nope. And lastly, not really. Alright, so if I run this, See, you can see yes. If I change these conditions to this, the second condition will be evaluated to true, right? Oops, let me change this. Okay, so if now I do this, see, we are getting no, because this condition is getting evaluated to false and this one is getting evaluated to true. That's why we are getting no at the console. What if we make these conditions to be false? See, so we could do this, and this time these both of these conditions will be evaluated to false, and the default condition, which is in else block, will be executed. Let me show you. See, not really. Alright, I hope this will be making sense. Okay, let me show you what are ternary operators. Now why I am telling you ternary operators in this conditions chapter, because this is somehow related to this conditional statements, right? So it is better to explain it here. So let me store something, const name is equals to, we can say num1 is greater than num2. Just see, I will be explaining just after the writing of this statement. If num1 is, then assign Abhishek, else assign it to tiding. Okay, alright. So what do you think, what will be done? Let me show you quickly. So this whole statement is called ternary operators. Okay, there are three parts: condition part, and this is called true part, and this is called false part. So basically this is the conditions. It works in the same way that if else works. Okay, so the conditions is first checked, and then if this condition is true, associated true block or associated true value or expressions will be executed, and if this condition getting false, then the second one, the part that comes after this colon, will be assigned to the name variable, right? So if I just console.log name, what do you think, what will be logged? Since num1 is actually greater than num2, Abhishek should be logged. Okay, let me see. Yep, see here Abhishek can be seen in the console. Okay, so that was the conditions, and let me just quickly start loops over here, loops.js. Alright, so there are multiple types of loop. Let me just quickly show you the do while loops, but first let me show what are the loops. So in basic sense, loops means a process that is getting repeated again and again and again. Okay, that is called loops. So here in programming, if you want to execute some block of code for amount of time, if a conditions is getting true, after that if the condition is getting false, you might want to just stop executing the program. That's a kind of loops example, right? Okay, so loops are the way to repeat some part of the program for a certain amount of time. Okay, so there are multiple types of loop. For example, let me show you the first loop, which is while loop. Okay, let me show you the while loop. So let I is equals to 0. we can write a while loop like this. Okay, so we will be checking while I is less than 10, while I is less than 10, console.log I, right, console.log I, and don't forget to increment the variable, or else the loop will go infinitely. Okay, so let me just run this program. Node loops.js. See, we are getting all the values from 0 to 9 over here in the console. Since we are incrementing this I plus I variable, increment variable, we are incrementing basically that. So what is happening here? If let's visualize this, when I was 0, this condition was true, I is less than 0, because I is 0, right? So it logged I over here, and then it incremented I to 1. This is equals to I is equals to I plus 1. This is equivalent. Okay, this statement and this statement are equivalent, equals, you can say, right? So this is the kind of loop where we are executing this log statement until this condition is getting evaluated to false, right? So this is while loop. Same thing we could use do while loop. Basically do while is looks like this, and the same conditions can come here, right? And we can just console.log I over here, and I plus plus means increment the I by 1. Okay, so this loop will do the exactly same thing that this is doing. Let me comment this and run again the same program. See, we are again getting 0 to 9, right? So what is the difference? Basically, what is the difference between this while loop and this do while loop? So let me tell you, there is only one difference, that this do statement will be run at least for the first time, because the first time these statements are getting executed without checking this condition. Simple. So even if I make this to false, even if I make this to false for the first time, this program will be executed, right? Why? Because do will be executed even before checking the conditions. Okay, at least for the first time. So let me just quickly run this. See, we are getting 0 here because it first logged 0 over here, then it incremented it, and then it gets to check the conditions in a while block. Alright, I hope this makes sense. Alright, so let me quickly just do this. So this was the do while loop. Let me quickly show you the for loop. Okay, the for loop. So for loop looks like this, just simple as that. In this for, in this associated pair of parentheses with for, we have three statement. Statement 1, which usually is the initialization part of the counter, and the second one called conditions, and the third you can say modification of counter, right? So these are something that are seen in for loop. So statement 1 is initialization. Let j is equals to 0. I'm just picking another variable to demonstrate this example over here. Conditions are meant to be as simple as this. So this is the conditions, and here the modification counter, like we can increase the j's value, right, like this. So this is all same as these two loops, just the way of writing is differ, right? So we can again just console.log j's value. Okay, let me quickly comment it out, and see, we are getting 0 to 4. So this is the for loop. Alright, I hope that made sense. So just let me quickly show you. Wait, there are, you can say there are just three basic loops in JavaScript. There are two more loops, for in and for each. For in and for off loop. There is also for each loop, which is especially for arrays. So I will be talking about that in a bit moment. Okay, so just let me close this files as well, and let me create a file called functions. Before that, let me show you arrays.js. So basically, what are arrays? Let me show you. Arrays are the list of some variables that are meant to be stored in a single unit, you can say. For example, if you have the names of 10 students in your class, and if you want to assign them in a variable, what you could do is you can make 10 separate variables and assign each of them individually, but that is obviously lengthy process. So you would like to assign something more manageable, more accessible, right? So you can define some arrays. Arrays are nothing but a list. So let me type here, arrays are nothing but a list of some values, right? So for example, if name was, or you can say if name 1 was tidying and name 2 was technical, right? So this is the way to assign these two values to these two variables respectively. Alright, what we could do, we could make a array names something like this, and just do this. Like you can see we have created a list of these two values and assigned the list to the variables, right? We are assigning this list to the variable names. So this list is called arrays. Okay, this list is actually an array. Alright, this list is actually an array. So next part comes is accessibility, like access, how to access the value. If I talk about these two variables, right, we can actually access that simply doing log, like name1. If I do this, then the value of name1 will be getting logged, right? If I do this node arrays, see, tidying is getting logged. So if I need to log this value, I could simply refer to name2 variable, for example this and this. See, we are getting technical, but how do we reference these two variables if that variable that values are inside a list, and that list is called names? Okay, so there are concept of indexing. There is a concept of indexing. Index values are helpful to reference a value in a arrays. Okay, and remember, it always starts from 0. In any programming language, indices are always starting from 0, right? We could, and this notations, these brackets are meant to be accept the index of the value that you are meant to be used, right? For example, if you want tidying, so let's count this. This is 1, this is 2, right? This is 1 and this is 2. Actually this is 1, but in programming this is 0, because indexing always starts from 0. So this value come at the 0th index, and this value comes at the first index. So if we want to reference this value tidying, we could just simply write 0 in this parenthesis, right? If I put 0 here, and let me show you. Okay, if I put 0 here, the interpreter will file the definition of names, and it will go here, and it will see that names is a list of two values. Then it will move here that zeroth should be accessed. So the zeroth value is tiding, so tiding should be logged on the console. Let me run this program. See, we are getting tiding. So what if we want to log this value? Oh yeah, you guessed correctly. We can just put here 1, because 0 and the second value will be at the position of first index. So if I run this program, see, I'm getting technical. I hope you guys have an idea of how we will be accessing the values. If I say log all the values to the console that are present in a names array, you can simply run a for loop. You can simply run a for loop. Let I is equals to 0 and I is less than how much? 2. I is less than 2 and I plus plus, right? Just like this. And you can just simply console.log names I. See what will be happening here? We are consoling, we are actually logging names ith value. For the first time the loop was running, I was 0, so names 0th value will be logged, right? Let me run this program first. You see, we are getting tiding and technical. Forget about this technical, because that is coming from right here. If I comment out it will not be logged. See, so basically that was the case. So here I was 0 and names 0 was logged over here for the first iteration of this loop. In the second iterations, I was incremented by 1 and it became 1. So 1 is again got checked with this expression which evaluated to true, and the I1 names first value was logged over here. So in this way you can just iterate the array and see the values of that. It's kind of traversing the array, right? There is a dedicated method for array looping, which is called for off loop, right? How to write that loop? Let value of and the name of the arrays. See, this is very interesting. We can simply do this. This is called for off loop. We generally use for off loop on arrays because we can access the value of names arrays one by one automatically. We don't need to specify an indices to access the values, right? So if I just log here console.log value, it will do the same, right? It will do the same, but to show you, let me just quickly comment this out. Alright, if we run this program, see, we are getting tiding and technical, same result, right? Okay, we have seen two methods of logging just values, right? There is another method which is called for each loop, right? Actually this is not a loop, this is a functions provided by JavaScript to loop through the array, right? It is a prototypal function for arrays. We could write names dot for each, see, and this way we can just log the value. We can just log the value. It will still be same. You can read more about for each on the Mozilla Developer Networks. They have very good resources for JavaScript and web technologies. See, the third loop logged the two values over here. Okay, I hope this made sense. So you guys have a understanding of this loop and this loop. For this you can read further on Mozilla's website. They have very well documented sections for that. So let me show you the objects. objects in JavaScript, right? So what are objects? Objects are a map type structure for JavaScript. For example, if I ask you what a map, you can say that we can show a point on a map and say that this is called Allahabad, this is called Agra. So that is basically map. So how that behavior is implemented in JavaScript is object, right? Let me tell you that everything in JavaScript is actually an object, whether it is a string, whether it is array, or whether it is actual JSON object, right? So let me create just an object, my object, um, it can have name Abhishek, it can have surname, oops, it can have surname Prajapati. Now let me quickly tell you what is this. So this is an object. Object are written like this. We have to declare, we have to create a pair of parentheses, curly braces. We have to create a pair of curly braces. In that we can use this syntax like key and value separated by commas, right here. It's now more readable. So we can see my object has two keys. The first one is name, the second one is surname, and these are just a way to, you know, organize the variables, organize the values. For example, Abhishek should be the name of someone, so it is assigned with the key name, right? And the Prajapati was meant to be surname, so it was assigned to a variable, a key name surname, which is a part of my object variable. So the question is, how do we access, right? How do we access this value and how do we access this value, right? So we could just console.log my object. We can use dot notation. Okay, there are two ways to access the properties. The first is dot notation, which is preferred, and the second one is square notation. See, we are getting suggestion over here that we have two properties on this object. The first one is name and the second one is surname. So let me just log this. So this will be this will find my object over here, and it will try to find the name key in this object, right? And it will find it right here. So it will log the name. Let me just run this program. So node objects, see, we are getting Abhishek logged out here. In a similar way we could log surname, right? And the program will give the surname of the my object. So this was about how to access the values. I told you that there is another method to access same thing using the square notations. Under this you will have to write name like this. In this way you can also get the same result. See, I'm getting the Abhishek over here because the name property was Abhishek. The first value was from here, that can be skipped in this example. See, we are getting Abhishek. So this was the accessing the object's value. You can read more about accessing JSON data on MDN and on W3 schools. They guys have very well organized examples of these topics. You can always read further. And let me just quickly explain what are functions in JS. Okay, functions are helpers. So for example, if you need to do some task repeatedly, you can use for loop. Or if you want to do some tasks on some conditions that are not possible with loops, so we use functions for that purpose. For example, if I have variable, let num1 is equals to 10, okay, and num2 is equals to let's it is also okay, num2 is 20. If I say that show me the addition of these two values, so you will just do this like console log add num1 to num2, okay, and the addition of this will be logged on the console like this, 30, right? But what if I need to use this addition logic multiple times in our program? So I will not be writing like multiple times like this is very bad practice in programming. Instead, I will make a function. Functions can be declared, can be defined with function keyword like this. Functions add value, add value, this, like this. Okay, so we can specify what will be the parameters, what will be the parameters of these functions, what values these functions will use to calculate the sum, right? So we can define it will be using let's say a and b, these two values, and return. Function can or cannot return, it is your choice, right? You can return something, like I am returning here the add the sum of a and b. A and b can be anything that are getting passed. There are two basic features, you can say. The first one is definition, like this is the definition of the function add value, and the execution is something like this, add value. Okay, so and we have to pass the variables that we are required here, right? We need this a and we need this b, so we'll have to pass a as num1 and b as num2. So what will happen, num1 and num2 will be passed in these functions, and num1 will be coming in the form of a, num2 will be coming in the form of b, and the overall a plus b will be returned. So this place, right, this place is the result of num1 and num2, and we can store the returned value in another variable like this. So what is happening, we are just passing num1 and num2 add value functions, and the result is getting stored in result. So we can simply just log the result over here. Okay, see, if I run this, we are still getting 30. So this way I can use, every time I need to add two values, I can just simply write here result 2, shut your mouth up, cut this part. So we can simply write 12 and 23, and the add value functions will take 12 and 23 as a and b respectively, and will return the sum of them. Okay, so if I log result 2, the sum of 12 and 23 will be logged on the console. See, 35. So this way we can reuse the logic. We are basically reusing this logic through these functions all over the program, right? Everywhere there where we are required to use some. This was the simple example of functions that are taking some values as a parameter and returning the processed result over, right? So this was all about functions. There are multiple ways to define a functions. For example, this is called basic way to define a function using function keyword. But in ECMAScript 6, which is a latest version of JavaScript, this is not latest, but it was a major update in JavaScript. Who is he? Just cut this part out. Okay, so the another way is something like this. We can add value 2. We can have these functions stored in this variable, and just like this, we are using this to make this arrow function. This is called an arrow functions. It will also take a and b, and will again return the same thing, a plus b. Alright guys, so add value 2 will also do the same job. So result 3, the difference is that the type of these functions, okay, there are also differences between these. Like, this is not just about writing the way of writing the functions, but there are also some characteristics which is only shown in this definitions, and some are only shown in this definitions because we can access this, and that are very advanced topics. You can always read about it on MDN, Mozilla, and W3 schools. Okay, so we can just do this, and again we can pass 23, 24, and it will again give me the result of them. Okay, so alright, so that was basically it for today. I hope we'll be meeting in some next session. Okay, thank you so much guys for being with me. I hope you gained some knowledge on JavaScript, at least the knowledge that will make you get started with the programming. Best of luck for your future. Thank you so much for watching this video.